So ISO. ISO, like if you watch the video previous to this, um, it really affects the lighting as well on your image, and it also affects the noise, what we call noise in your photograph. So if you ever see a photograph that has a lot of like dot, almost you can see the grain in your photograph, especially within film. You can see quite a bit of grain. So the ISO, if it is really high, the more grainy it is. If it's really low, the less grainy it is. So you might wonder, why would I want my photo to look grainy? A grainy look can be fairly trendy these days. There's a lot of photographers that's kind of part of their style, whether they shoot with film or digital. But that grainy look it's all about the ISO. So in certain situations, you might choose to have more of a grainy look due to, just the super low lighting conditions and the availability of lenses that you have. So on my camera here, you can see I actually have a shortcut. It's the second button down, where if I click on that button, and it'll appear here what my ISO is, and then I can change it. So right now it's 1,000. I don't know if you can see that, and I'm gonna set it down to 200. So generally you want your ISO to be as low as possible. So if you do have it on manual mode, keep it as low as 200 is pretty standard. If you can get it lower than that, then that's great too. The lower it is, the sharper the image will be. But if you are in a low light situation where you have adjusted the aperture as low as you can, and you've also adjusted the shutter speed as low as you can, but there's a lot of movement going on, so it's smearing the image, your last resort can be upping the ISO. So the larger the number in the ISO, the more light comes in. So what's happening with the ISO in a digital camera is that it is basically, the computer chip is just working extra fast. The processing is working extra fast, and so it's not gathering all of the pixels when the ISO is really high. But as a result, it can capture that light much quicker. So you don't have to worry about, someone, if you're taking a photograph of someone in a low light condition and they are moving fairly fast, and you've done everything with your shutter speed and aperture, that extra boost of ISO can make it look grainy, but not smeared, like I mentioned in the other video. So you get a clearer image of that person. The nicer your camera is, the less you'll see the grain. And also keep in mind that you want to make sure that the ISO is low, because when you are looking at a photograph on a screen this small, you probably will not recognize the grain, as opposed to when you get it up on a plasma, on a LCD screen during a presentation, it's going to be really obvious. Or if you're printing a really large photograph, the grain is just going to be really distracting. So keep in mind to just keep an eye on that ISO. If you have to up it really high one night and then the next day it's still hot, you're still shooting manual, and it's still really high, then that can really ruin a set of pictures, especially if you're planning on blowing them up really large. So that's a little bit about ISO. Another way to think about it, if you're familiar with any kind of film photography, ISO is very similar to the speed of film that we used to buy for our cameras. So you could get like 800 speed was one of the highest that you could get for film, and it was usually costs a little bit more, and that just refers, and a lot of times it'll advertise it as like sport or some sort of action on the package, and that's because it's if you're like on a football field and it's kind of low light, it's at nighttime, and that football player is running really quickly and you're really close to them, so they're going by really fast, then the 800 speed will capture it better than the 200 speed, for example. So that's another way to think about it too.